Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our guest in studio today is Mr. Brian Moore Ward, a man living in the Boston area, living with multiple sclerosis, working with Biogen and MS World to help launch #MySupportHero. It's a program that encourages people living with MS to thank and recognize their support partners for their ongoing help and care and strength and support during MS Awareness Month. And Mr. Ward is here with us to talk about his walk and with MS, his support partners, and much more. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Brian.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're suffering with MS. Is it suffering with or is it living with?
I'm living with. It's a very unpredictable disease, and it's something that can change day to day, symptom-wise. So it's something I'm definitely living with. And I don't like to say suffer because I'm an MS survivor.
I understand. Now, how long have you known that you had MS? And was it something that you realized that you had immediately, or was there a time period where you were confused and wondering, what the hey?
Absolutely. So about 9 years ago, I started to experience, numbness in my legs, especially on my right side of my body, where I would lose feeling. It was almost like my arm would go to sleep for weeks. And at the time, I assumed, it was, my arm had fallen asleep. I must have pinched a nerve. So initially, I was diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome. And from there, that was the initial diagnosis. And then after the symptoms kind of subsided, I actually had a bad fall, and I got a bulging disc. And from the bulging disc, I had to go and have a cortisone injection with a pain specialist. And after he was reviewing my chart or my medical history, he asked me if anyone ever mentioned multiple sclerosis. And I said no, and then he asked if he could talk to my primary doctor and then do some more testing. And so from the first initial, when we thought it was carpal tunnel, to the fall and the bulging disc, and the pain specialist recommending that maybe I have an MRI and talk to the neurologist, that's how it kind of subsided. And then it's funny, though, because even after we got the confirmed diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, after I think back on my younger days, my teenage years, I always had probably some MS symptoms that I kind of didn't pay attention to, or I was the type that unless I was really sick, I didn't go to the doctor.
You said that the symptoms temporarily subsided after the misdiagnosis of carpal tunnel. What made the symptoms subside? I mean, was it a mental thing where you say, okay, now I know what I have and I can manage it, or was there some type of treatment for carpal tunnel that seemed to be working?
Well, for the carpal tunnel, they actually put me on an anti-inflammatory. And so people with MS realize your nerves get inflamed, so anti-inflammatories are good. So actually, by them giving me that anti-inflammatory, it actually subsided some of those symptoms, and they kind of slowly, went away. They would come back, but it wouldn't be as intense. That was the initial kind of making the symptoms kind of dissipate or go away for a small period of time.
Now, you've been living with MS for a time now and interacting with different MS support partners. In your experience, do men do that traditional thing like you did? Unless there's blood and an arm that I have to carry with my other arm, I'm not going to the doctor. Is that something that
Right.
you see repeatedly in males, or is it something that, runs both genders? Because, I mean, it's MS, and who really expects to have MS when their arm is numb?
Right. It's funny that you say that because I was in that mind frame where, I'm a tough guy. Unless I'm bleeding or broke a bone, I don't need to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, a majority of males think that way because they like to be tough guys.
Yeah.
But I know in my experience, I was the type I wouldn't go unless I was really in pain or broke something. It was just kind of how I was. So after the diagnosis, I initially kind of would pay more attention, obviously, to my body and know what was going on. But I do think that you sometimes play that tough guy role, especially males, because you don't want to be a baby and, my arm fell asleep, I need to go. Because you don't think if your arm falls asleep that it's going to be something serious. But MS has, symptoms can be across the board with MS, from anything from tingling to numbness to losing sight and hearing. So it can be like all over the place.
When you spoke with your doctor, or your doctor initially spoke with you and mentioned MS, how did you get your mind wrapped around it, from, carpal tunnel to MS? Is that when you began to put together a support group, or is this something that you had to stumble upon and learn that you would benefit from?
Well, of course, at the beginning, I didn't really know anything about the disease. I heard of it, but I didn't know anything of it. I think initially, my first initial thought was like, oh goodness, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. And then luckily, because of my support partner, my husband, Charlie, he luckily is incredibly intelligent. He would actually have to do the research for me because I would get incredibly overwhelmed or worried. So he kind of took the forefront of, he probably knows more about the disease than I do, because if I look at something, it can boggle your mind. So it took a while after the initial diagnosis to really get into that positive mind frame. And I'd say it took about a year or two to really kind of do a 180 on my mindset, I guess.
Now, your husband, Charlie?
Yes.
Is he your primary caregiver? And were you guys married before or after your diagnosis?
We were married 6 months.
Oh, wow. So you got this a life changer right after changing your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. So 6 months before my 30th birthday and 6 months after being married, this was a new way of life for us.
Man, you talk about overloading experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
I talk with people quite a bit that are having to deal with a family member that's living with one illness or another. And I guess the willingness or ability to be able to give someone support on that intimate a level, far above and beyond the nurse that comes, maybe even daily, but, it's your husband or your mom or your wife or whatever, Do you often find yourself maybe counseling or giving advice to others based on the quality of care that you're getting from your husband when their caregiver may be stumbling in an area or totally lacking in an area? Do some of your friends come to you for support?
I definitely have a network or community of, and I call them my MSers, that either on Twitter or Facebook will reach out to me about, every patient's different. So my symptoms could be different from patient A to patient B. So we just try to talk about similar experiences, like we're taking the same medication, or what do you do when this symptom comes up? But the caregiver obviously is incredibly important because they're a huge resource as well, as you said. So I think, initially I try to help, or people reach out to me. There's so many great resources from, msworld.org or even abovems.com that is a great resource for people in the community to find out information. And I think that was a huge help at the beginning for me to kind of get me into connecting with other people that were going through the same experience as me. But I do enjoy speaking to other MSers about what they're going through, and they do tweet me or email me or reach out to me on Facebook.
Let's talk about MS Awareness Month and hashtag My Support Hero.
Sure. So this great initiative that was started by Biogen and msworld.org is an initiative, hashtag My Support Hero, as you said, and it's to honor those caregivers, like my husband, Charlie. It can affect them just as much as it affects the patient living with the disease, even though they're not going through the symptoms or the pain of the disease. They're dealing with it emotionally, on emotional and mental level, where obviously this was a huge change in my husband's life after 6 months of marriage, and now, we're beginning our life together, and then this disease popped its head in. So this initiative is a great way to thank those people that don't always get the recognition.
Right. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard, and we've been in studio talking with Brian Moore Ward this afternoon, discussing his journey with multiple sclerosis, also discussing the importance and the huge benefits of a loving, caring, close by caregiver as he has in his husband. Brian is in the Boston area, and he's also started the initiative hashtag My Support Hero. It's an initiative where folks living with MS can personally, virtually thank and recognize their support partners for their ongoing help, care, and support during MS Awareness Month. It's been great having you here with us this afternoon, Brian.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.